just a snapshot of some of the things we do, and many of the people that we have worked with and are working with currently. A lot of the faces you see on that video are the faces that we'll go back and greet and start working with again when we get there. So that's some of the things we've done since we did the video about 2 years ago. And since we've done the video, we've initiated 2 new ministries. One is a Bible school called Previa School of Life Ministry, or PVSAM for short. It's a seasonal Bible school where you have students come in from different areas outside of the main city, places where they can't have access to the Word of God or teaching, really. And they come and study with us for a week at a time, and then they go back and practice what they learn. And then after about 2-3 months, they come back again, and we do it again. We've gone through the whole Old Testament this last year. We started in January. We've had 4 sessions now, week-long sessions. The last one was a short one because we're away. And then we send them back and they practice, and we visit them and work out problems in the ministry or work with them to try to do that. And then a recent ministry that we started is a girls' dorm ministry. And then we shared about that on Friday night at the 2 services, but we won't share about it now. But that's been a brand new ministry for us, and maybe we'll be sharing in the future about that ministry. But I'd like to share with you some things from the Word, and we turn to the book of Haggai. And if you have a Bible, I will not have the scriptures on the screen. I'm sorry about that. I could have done that, but I didn't do that. Haggai is a small book. It's only 2 chapters, and it's the 3rd book from the end of the Old Testament. So if you go to Malachi and Matthew, where the Bible breaks from the Old Testament to the New Testament, and then you come back 3 places, 3 books to the book of Haggai, and then I'll be referring to some other scriptures as well. But hopefully, it won't be hopping around too much. But I wanted to make a mention. I really am, I rejoice or I celebrate that you guys are sending teams out so often. We just hear there's a lot of teams in progress, in process, and then in contemplation that you're thinking about and looking at political situations, or whether you can send teams there. That's really noteworthy. That's really incredible, because as we traveled we were up here last weekend in the Bay Area, the San Jose area. Then we've gone down to San Diego and back again, and we marvel at the state of California. I think you really have a special state here. I said to Carolyn about halfway through our trip, I said California can be its own country. It has everything. It has everything. The growing and the vegetables that you produce and the ranches. I'm really impressed with California. I think it's our greatest state, even though I'm a Pennsylvanian. And it would be easy just to think about California and stay here, but you are sending teams out one after another to places that are not like California, that don't have the resources that California has. And I think that's really noteworthy. Now, I like Pennsylvania a lot. I moved there 30 years ago, but it doesn't quite have everything that California has. We don't have any beaches, for one thing. And we do have skiing, I guess. And you have skiing as well, I think, big in California. But I just commend you on your outreaches. And I think that kind of ties in with the sermon a little bit of making God's concerns our concerns. It would be easy to just think about stuff here in this bountiful land of California, the Bay Area, San Jose, Campbell. But to reach out is God working in our midst. So I'll share a little bit about Haggai. Now, Haggai, if you don't know much about it, that's okay. It's not a well-known book of the Bible. It's one of those, let's say, obscure. It's only 2 chapters long. And if you just jump, we're just going to look at the first chapter this morning. But if you just jump right in, you probably say, I really don't know the context. I don't really know what's going on. So let me just share a little bit of the context. I'll try to be brief in it, so we have time to spend time in Haggai. But I don't know how well you know biblical history and how comfortable you are. So I'll just review briefly. The Jewish people were in the land that God had brought them in the promised land for many years, through the kings and the long line of kings. But they constantly disobeyed God, as you know. Most of the prophets, the central part of our Bible, is about God trying to straighten out his people, trying to get them to obey him, and using the prophets to come and talk to them about their sin, and warning that if they did not change their ways, that they will be taken into exile or deported. We have a lot of deportation issues and immigration. Well, they were going to be deported, not by a government, but by God. So they, in fact, were deported. They disobeyed God. They didn't listen to the warnings that came probably hundreds of thousands of times to many generations. They just ignored it. They got stiff-necked. They were deported into Babylon. And many of the people left. A few of the poorest people were allowed to stay to keep the land going, to cultivate the land. So they went into Babylon. They were there for 70 years according to the promise of God. They would be 70 years there. But God also had another promise that they'd come back one day. That was going to be their time out. They're kind of take them to the students that are struggling, or even your kids, take them to time out a little bit. So they went into time out, punishment for their sin, for 70 years into Babylon. Babylon then became Persia, the change of government there. But according to God's plan, they were to come back. And come back they were going to do. And I'll just read a little bit from Ezra about the coming back. And it's you can see it's God's plan, the king's plan, the people's plan, and everybody was going to assist them. So in the first year, this is Ezra 1, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved in the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout his realm and also to put it in writing. This is what Cyrus, king of Persia says: "The Lord God of heaven has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build a temple for him in Jerusalem in Judah. Any of his people among you may go to Jerusalem in Judah and build the temple of the Lord, the God of Israel, the God who is in Jerusalem, and may their God be with them. And in any locality where survivors may also be living, the people are to provide them with silver and gold, with goods and livestock, and the freewill offerings for the temple of the God in Jerusalem. Then the family heads of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and Levites, everyone whose heart God had moved, prepared to go up and build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem." So the king Nebuchadnezzar actually sees it as his mission to send out this group. And they're going to build a temple and get it started and to rebuild, because if they have the temple, they have their identity back in Jerusalem. If they have no temple, the Jewish people have no identity there. So they all go back, and they start out with great fanfare and celebration and rejoicing. But by the time we get back to the book of Haggai, things have stalled out. Things have stalled out, and Haggai is going to bring a message of working with the people, okay? And so I want to spend most of my time in Haggai, and I kind of have broken into 3 sections. And we'll go through 3 sections, and after each section I'm going to ask a question. A question to the congregation here at Living Hope, but also a question to me, to my wife, to our church, and to everyone. It's God questioning us, I guess. Well, it'll be my questions, but kind of like searching, where are we at in terms of this message here. So let me read a little bit. Oops, I think I lost that guy. Okay. So Haggai is a prophet for the people that return. They've been in there a while. They come back with great excitement, but they've stalled out. So I'll read the first 5 verses here. In the 2nd year of King Darius, in the 1st day of the 6th month, the word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai to Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, son of Jozadak, the high priest. "This is what the Lord Almighty says. These people say the time has not yet come to rebuild the Lord's house." Then the word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai. "Is it time for you to yourselves be living in your paneled houses, while this house remains a ruin? Now this is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. You have planted much, but harvested little." Okay, let me stop there. So they come back into the land. They were to rebuild the temple. That was their mission. That's why they came back. And they've stalled out. They kind of, you think of a motor when you start out in something and it just stalls and falters and you can't get it restarted. This is what had happened to them. They had stalled out in the plan of God. And instead of moving forward, they had hit problems. They had hit, people had shut them down. The locals who had moved in after they were there didn't want them there. They started to contend with them. They started to send letters back to the country of Persia saying these guys shouldn't be doing this. They were shutting them down. They were finding problems. They were hitting turbulence. They were hitting obstacles. And I think what I can relate to this, when I struggle in ministry, what's the natural tendency we would have? Often, you might try a little bit to work through those problems, but often you turn inward. I don't know if you can relate to that. You know, you may have problems. I'll list some of the problems that we could have. You know, think about within our church, maybe at Living Hope. Davisville is our church, and our church has had its struggles. We've had our struggles in ministry, and I see many missionaries have their struggles as well. So let me ask a question. Is there anything that's stalling you from serving the Lord? It could be many things. Fear, and I've experienced many things. Fear, laziness, lack of focus, overcommitment to leisure, sports, overcommitment to people, overcommitment to a job. Maybe we're angry with somebody at the church. Maybe we're angry with somebody in ministry or leadership. Maybe we just had too many problems. We had too many obstacles, and you just want to quit. I don't know if you can relate to that. You know, I don't know your church well enough, so I would never point fingers. But I know in my church there's struggles. Even in Cambodia, one of our major roles in Cambodia is as Cambodians. Young Cambodians in ministry, they don't have that legacy that is here of Christianity that we have here in America. And so when they hit problems, what do you think they do? All the ministry in Cambodia, we're to train Cambodian Christians that they can do the ministry. And I know that's what you have taken on here, that everyone is a minister. Okay? In Cambodia, Cambodians often struggle, especially young Cambodians. When they hit obstacles, they stop. They stop and quit and just say, I'm not going to do it anymore. So one of our goals is to try to keep encouraging them to move forward. So that's just a question for us. Is there anything that's stalling us in ministry, stalling us, keeping us from moving forward and serving the Lord? So that's the problem that, and let me just unpack that a little bit. Haggai came to the people were to build a temple, but since it wasn't going so good, they turned their interest inward to themselves and began to work on their own personal pursuits. In this case, their houses, but I'm sure there was many other things that they were doing, their orchards, their own stuff, and they forgot the community of God and God's purpose for them as a people. So Haggai's going to explain, he's going to unpack that a little bit more. He's going to say, you've had some problems in your life, and let's talk about that. Haggai in the next section. I'm going to pick back up in verse 5. And it goes on for a little bit. But look at the problems they're having. They're having a lot of problems there now. And he's going to explain why they're having those problems. Now this is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. You have planted much, but harvested little. You eat, but never have enough. You drink, but never have your fill. You put on clothes, but are not warm. You earn wages. I like this one a lot. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. Maybe, can you relate to that? Sometimes, no matter how much seems to come in, it just goes back out again, all these holes. Sometimes you might have a windfall of resources, and then all of a sudden the needs rise up, and it just goes back out again. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. Go up into the mountains and bring down timber and build my house so that I may take pleasure in it and be honored, says the Lord. You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. What you brought home, I blew away. Why, declares the Lord Almighty? Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you is busy with your own house. Therefore, because of you, the heavens have withheld their dew, and the earth its crops. I call for a drought on the fields and the mountains, and on the grain, the new wine, the olive oil, and everything else the ground produces, on people and livestock, and on all the labor of your hands. So everything they were trying to do, everything that affected their life in a significant way was being stopped and thwarted and held back by God himself. Not just the problems in general, but God was actually resisting them because they were putting their own concerns first and putting God's second. Now, I know we've learned very well in the San Jose area that most people we talk to are engineers or technical, many are at least. And I know that many, I was thinking about that this morning, an engineer's job, and I worked in engineering myself for a while, an engineer's job is basically you have a vision or goal, You're here, the goal's here, and you have to just solve the problems that prevent you from getting there. Is that correct? I mean, that's a non-technical way of, you work through all the problems that prevent you from having that device or that advance. You work through them, and then when they're all gone, you have what you wanted there. And so that's problems are part of life. We all face problems. Missionaries face problems. Northeasterners, Pennsylvania face problems. Californians face problems. That's part of life. And many of those problems are to develop our character and to work through naturally. But these are problems that are not to be worked through. These are problems that God is trying to send signals that something is going wrong. I think of if you have your brakes are squealing on your car, it's sending you a signal that you have a problem. But you don't go and spray oil in there, because you're going to have a worse problem. Your car won't stop. Or if your knee is sending sharp pain, you don't just take medicine to dull the pain. You look at what the problem is. You look at what other things are being said about it. So God is trying to communicate to them that these problems are for me. I'm causing these problems. I'm resisting you because you have put God's work second or third place and put your own concerns in first place. So my question, kind of said it already there, could some of the problems that we are facing, maybe at Living Hope or the Gabriels in Cambodia or our church in Northeast, be because like the Israelites, we are giving our second or third best to the Lord and not putting what He has first? What would God have us do differently? All right, is there some way that we're out of step with the Spirit? These people, the Israelites, at this time of their life, were out of step with the Spirit. They were trying to go this way. God was trying to go bring them this way. They were out of step with God's Spirit. So that's the problem that Haggai faces. They were concerned about their own individual concerns and not putting God's concerns first. So thankfully, the story has a great ending. And I'd like to just spend a little time on the ending of that. Let me get myself straightened out here. So this is the final section of Haggai chapter 1. Haggai had preached to them, had encouraged them to follow God, kind of rebuked them, put God's concerns first. And they responded. Then Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, he's the governor, Joshua, son of Jozadak, he's the high priest, and the whole remnant of the people obeyed the voice of the Lord their God and the message of the prophet Haggai, because the Lord their God had sent him, and the people feared the Lord. Then Haggai, the Lord's messenger, gave this message to the Lord, to the people. I am with you, declares the Lord. So the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, I'll just jump down, in the spirit of Joshua, and the high priest, and the spirit of the whole remnant of the people, and they came and began to work on the house of the Lord Almighty, their God. So they've been now rallied to do the work together, pull together to do God's work, and they work together as a community. And that's something I've been thinking a bit more and more as we're kind of been in missionaries 11 years now in Cambodia. God wants people to pull together. He doesn't want or need superstars. And there's not many superstars in the church. There's some well-known names, but most times He wants congregations just to pull together as a group. Just the lay people or the ministers of the gospel that are just like you and me to pull together and do the work together. And so the good news of this story is that they, let's just jump back to Ezra 6. It doesn't talk about the completion of the temple here, but it does in Ezra. And they're going to have joy at the end. Let's see, Ezra 6. I'm going to read verses 14 and 16. So the elders of the Jews continued to build and prosper under the preaching of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah, descendant of Iddo. They finished building the temple according to the command of God, the God of Israel, and the decrees of Cyrus, Darius, and Xerxes, king of Persia. And jumping down to 16. Then the people of Israel, the priests, the Levites, and the rest of the exiles celebrated the dedication of the house of God with joy. Okay, they've completed the temple, they're joyful. And later on, verse 22, I won't read it, but it says they were joyful because the Lord had turned the heart of the king to allow them to continue to build. They saw God open doors for them. And I don't know about you, but that's one of the greatest joys that I've experienced in life, when you're praying about something and seeking and trying to move forward and you feel stuck, and you pray and you know, you don't just sense, but you know God has opened a door for you to go through, or a window, if that's, or whatever, that He is opening before you a way. I don't know how that can't cause joy, to know that you're partnering with the God of the universe and in fellowship with Him, and walking with Him, and not crossing His paths, but you feel connected to the living God. I mean, that's a tremendous joy. They felt it back then. They completed the temple. They pulled together and completed it. So I have a couple more questions here. Just a kind of a challenge to us. And it says, do I know, or do you know as well, what the specific mission or burden to serve the Lord that Living Hope has? Okay, because sometimes we know our individual ministry. We like doing youth group, or we like teaching, or we like doing this or that, or serving as a deacon or an elder. What is the Lord hoping to do with Living Hope here in the Silicon Valley? What is He hoping to do in Campbell and in Santa Clara, and there's so many different, Mountain View and Cupertino. Let's see if I can name. I think that's kind of. What is God specifically hoping to do through your church? And are you aware of that? Are you pulling together as a community? God wanted them to pull together as a group to do this temple. What is God calling you to do? Now, I would know some of the things you do. I know you do evangelism and discipleship and youth ministry. You give and you teach and you encourage, because that's what churches do. But what is God specifically putting on the heart of the leadership and the people of Living Hope to do? And are you aware of that? Are you praying about those things? And also, are you, beyond knowing, are you involved in those things? Are you hoping to further the work here at the church? That's what God is calling us to do. And I'll probably be just concluding in a moment, but one of the things that really, we talked to Pastor Harrison, I don't know if he's here, but I was very impressed. We know that he's had some physical difficulties over the last couple of years. We were concerned about him in Cambodia when the team came and shared, the team that came last summer to work with us. They shared about Pastor Harrison and some of the physical difficulties he had had. We were concerned about that. But to hear a report, like Carol and I both, Carolyn talked to Rita, and I talked to Pastor Harrison about his health, just to inquire. And he shared a little bit, but he also shared about some of the ministries God is opening up to reach out to the community, that those that are not part of the church here, that are not Christians, but have felt needs and are struggling, and they are going out and doing these community groups. I don't know the name for it, but sharing with parenting and trying to help with single parents. That is very impressive. That's very impressive. There's probably so much work here that can be done just with Living Hope and just with the needs within the congregation already, but they're reaching out into new areas. You're well under your way to fulfill the idea of working out as a community, serving as a community, reaching out beyond your immediate things. But I would just ask and request, do that all that much more. Just keep going, keep pushing out of that. Paul would say to people, he said, I see your love for one another. I ask you to do that all much more. So I would just commend you. I do commend you as this church is an encouragement to us. As we come through here, we're very encouraged by Living Hope, but I commend you to keep doing those things. Keep pushing out your boundaries into the local community here, and as you've done, to keep pushing out to mission trips, to sharing God's Word. So let me just pray as we close here. Lord, I thank you for this time and this message from Haggai, the people getting a bit mixed up, Lord, a bit stalled in their walk with you, not seeking you about the problems they had, but just pulling back through their depression or their despair or discouragement, pulling back, Lord, pulling back and doing their individual concerns, not asking what was on your heart, Lord, that you had to send somebody in to kind of talk to them, kind of rebuke them, and get them set again on a path forward, to let out some steps there that they could move forward, Lord. I just pray, if there be anything here, Lord, at Living Hope that would not be according to your will, Lord. If anybody feels stalled or stuck, I just pray, Lord, that they would seek you and then pull together as a body, Lord, to serve you. And I just think of the joy of a Christian group, a Christian church working together, and what a testimony, Lord. We can't argue people into the kingdom. Whenever we argue, it doesn't go anywhere. But when people see the joy and purpose of a church like this, Lord, may they be compelled to wonder why, ask questions, ask why we have this hope. And I just pray for the church, Lord, that you would bless it and encourage it. Thank you for this Chinese congregation, Lord. Thank you for their reception of us, Lord. We just commit this day and this time to you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
多謝我哋嘅宣教士咧，俾我哋一個聖經嘅教導同埋一個好實際嘅一個應用，亦都係我哋教會咧呢個嘅方向。好感謝主咧，就我上個禮拜同大家講，就希望你會記得我上個禮拜嘅道具係乜嘢咧？係啊，20蚊啊！我諗錢係比較記得嘅。我上個禮拜嘅經文係咩？記唔記得啊？我記得啊。個經文唔係好緊要，經文攞嚟用嘅，正如錢一樣。所以咧，今日我希望你攞20蚊紙出嚟。如果你有嘅話，如果你冇嘅話咧，我可以借俾你，可以送俾你，只要你用咗佢。咁唔該你放嗰個PowerPoint上嚟啊！喺我哋紀念主耶穌基督嘅所設立嘅聖餐，主耶穌基督講咧，呢個係我嘅身體為你擘開嘅，你哋要咁樣做，為的是紀念我。呢個係用我嘅血所立嘅新約，你哋以後咁樣做咧，為的是紀念我。主耶穌基督喺生命裏面講紀念咧，係關於佢自己嘅身體流血所立嘅約，為全世界，為所信佢嘅人，你同我。能夠有個機會嚟到係贖去我哋嘅罪，以致我哋嘅生命能夠為神在世界上面嚟到做佢嘅手、佢嘅腳、佢嘅眼、佢嘅口、佢嘅鼻，仲係佢嘅身體稱為教會嘅，以致我哋嘅生命能夠係進入耶穌嘅生命裏邊咧，去到永生。喺聖經裏邊，另外有一次耶穌基督話紀念嘅咧。唯一次嘅，除咗佢身體之外咧，紀念係乜嘢咧？係紀念一個女人。呢個女人或者我哋稱佢為瑪利亞。呢個瑪利亞做咗件乜嘢嘅事情咧？就在耶穌基督就嚟上十字架嘅時候咧，佢將佢嘅成個嘅身家，即係由細個爸爸同佢儲嘅一瓶嘅好貴嘅香膏，真拿大麻嘅香膏咧，呢個香膏由細個儲埋。係好濃嘅香膏，係佢應該係同佢出嫁新婚之夜攞嚟膏抹自己身體用嘅呢個香膏咧，打爛咗嚟到抹喺耶穌基督嘅腳上面。記唔記得呢件事啊？呢一件事令到門徒非常之唔喜歡喎。有人真係好唔信佢喎，點解咧？太嘥錢。有人話呢個香膏，佢門徒就可以買300兩銀啦。300兩銀就係起碼當時300日嘅工錢啦，可以買咁多嘅錢嘅嘢咧，可以去周濟窮人。點解你咁浪費？打爛咗就抹喺耶穌嘅腳上面，一陣間啲塵就洗咗，一陣間佢沖涼洗腳又冇咗啦，係咪啊？但係耶穌話呢個女人所做嘅係一件咩啊？美事，係為我安葬嘅事嚟到預備嘅。耶穌基督嘅復活，佢所流嘅血為我哋嘅永生。佢安葬嘅事，佢死嘅事情係為咗人嘅罪惡。所以耶穌讚美佢，唔單咁樣，佢話喺天下人間，凡係傳福音嘅地方咧，都要紀念呢件事。弟兄姊妹，耶穌基督要我哋紀念，除咗聖餐之外，要我哋紀念一個女人付上佢嘅金錢，喺人眼裏面好愚蠢嘅用啲金錢嚟到做一個就嚟要死嘅人，一隻腳就嚟要洗嘅一件事。但係耶穌就將呢件事轉化為對所有世界上面嘅罪惡嘅結果，貧窮係其中一樣嘢，一個最大嘅答案。弟兄姊妹，所以今日我呼籲你攞20蚊出嚟，你可以唔攞嘅。不過牧師要請下，牧師都慣咗咧係要教導，要呼籲你同神之間立個約。喺我哋教會裏邊咧，係我哋願意咧，就用20蚊咧，係做一件主耶穌吩咐我哋要愛人愛神， 佢話我哋如果唔能夠愛嗰啲睇到嘅人咧，特別我哋嘅弟兄咧，我哋就好難話我哋係愛神。喺上一個禮拜嘅聖經嘅聚會裏邊，我哋學到在利未記裏邊，愛鄰舍愛人咧，可以有5個嘅方位嘅。喺利未記嘅第16章，就係愛人鄰舍嘅前後。咁我哋教會咧就喺我哋當代嘅背景裏邊咧，我哋提出我哋選擇我哋嘅領袖咧揀咗4個嘅範圍咧，大家嚟到去可以去思考、去參與嘅。一個就係販賣人口嗰啲嘅受害者啦，第二個就係殘障智障嘅人，我哋可以去關懷啦。第3個咧就係嗰啲領養孩子嘅家庭咧，我哋睇下可唔可以我哋嚟到關注一下。第4個咧就係嗰啲單親嘅父母咧，佢嘅家庭我哋能唔能夠支援咧？特別我哋教會開始咗一個咁嘅小組。所以我上個禮拜請大家翻去祈禱，我唔知道你有冇，我希望你有，亦都希望神感動你咧。係願意攞20蚊出嚟去做一啲，無論呢4個範圍又好，剛才利未記所提嘅5個嘅方向都好啦。神點樣感動你，你就去做呢樣嘢，好唔好啊？如果好嘅話咧，如果你已經覺得係咁嘅時候，今日我請你做多一個舉動，在領完聖餐之後，請你去我嘅左邊或者右邊咧嚟到去簽下你嘅大名。神藉住一個天使，就係佢信佢嘅人係你係我咧。為佢做一啲事情，呢件事可能係20蚊。我唔希望大家就咁將20蚊咧捐咗俾世界宣明會，咁最容易做噶啦。我希望你有啲人嘅接觸，明唔明白？喺我曾經做過呢件事祈禱嘅時候，我唔知道神叫我點樣用20蚊。喺我經過我屋企嘅嗰條街嗰度咧，有一間嘅 Safeway， 就有一個家庭企咗喺度，帶住2個細路仔。我於是就停低車，本嚟我翻屋企嘅啫，經過停低車問佢。佢就話需要一啲嘅去 Safeway 買食物，咁我哋有機會同佢傾偈，俾20蚊佢，為佢祈禱祝福，講句耶穌愛你 ，no strings attached。我唔使去教會，又唔使去做任何嘢，但係話俾佢聽，呢20蚊係耶穌叫我俾你，然後我哋拜拜。我問咗佢名，佢又問咗我名，跟住大家都唔記得啦，萍水相逢。但係我希望我去祈禱，我為你祈禱，話俾佢聽，上帝藉著我幫佢去買一啲嘅食物啫。對我嚟講，可能係飲4杯咖啡咁就冇錯。弟兄姊妹，我盼望你攞20蚊出嚟。如果你需要嘅話咧，我嘅銀包裏仲有幾張20蚊，你即管攞。一個月之後翻嚟述説上帝藉著你向人施嘅一個愛行動，好唔好？好，我哋用咁樣嘅心嚟領受聖餐，我哋嚟到主嘅面前，領受佢嘅身體，領受佢嘅血，以致我哋嘅生命係在現在永恆嘅過渡時期咧，能夠成為世界一點嘅光，我哋嘅手成為人哋生命一點嘅溫暖。好，我哋請。